Good afternoon. Can we get a round of applause again for Dr. Kempin? He is the man, the myth, the legend. I mean, I am very happy to be here today and honored that AAPS asked me to speak about battling the maintenance of certification industry, our patients and physicians winning. So unlike most of you in the audience, I'm not a physician. Yeah, I know, it's hard to believe. I didn't spend 4 years in medical school, 3 years plus in residency, an additional couple of years of fellowship, take at least 5 medical licensure and specialty board exams, and finally start my job at the young age of like 35 or 40. Like many of you in the audience today, what was I thinking? Really? Seriously though, it's not a joking matter. I've seen firsthand the work and sacrifice it takes to become a physician. My husband and I, see over there, got married when he was in medical school. And my brother, well, he didn't get straight A's all the time for nothing. So I'm pretty sure he's thinking in that picture, how many books do I have to read before I become a doctor? No other profession actually requires this amount of time and dedication to training and didactic education prior to being able to practice their profession. The dedication practicing physicians have towards lifelong learning, education, and patient care is exactly why the profession receives such a deep respect around the globe. So, as a patient, I appreciate and applaud you. Give yourselves a round of applause for all the hard work, training, and patient care you've done over the years. Now, how did I get to this process? In the last few years, while obtaining my graduate degree in public administration, most of my research involved the nonprofit sector. So that would be your 501c3s and 501c6s, et cetera. Time and time again, well-known nonprofit organizations kept popping up in my research, like the Nature Conservancy, the American Red Cross, the United Way, names that initially brought to mind the idea of positive, socially conscious organizations. So when my husband threw down a mailer or postcard on my desk from the American Board of Internal Medicine and said, well, there's your nonprofit for you, I was stunned. Mainly because ABIM does not seem to fit into the category of a true nonprofit. All I knew of this organization was it was a testing company that took a lot of our money over the years. And so this is how I stumbled upon the medical certification industry. And as you can tell, these are some of the mailers, email alerts that were received over the years. So researching organizations like the Nature Conservancy or American Red Cross brought to light how nonprofit entities can easily undermine and bypass the public, donors, and even government officials with their excessive salaries, spending, and flagrant misappropriation of funds. However, I've also worked with for many years in the nonprofit sector and believe there are many nonprofits out there that provide a very significant public benefit and uphold the IRS regulations for nonprofit. And so the 501c3 is the most privileged tax status possible in this country, and its core status is rooted in public trust. Therefore, an organization that's been recognized as a 501c3 or a nonprofit is considered a public benefit and must demonstrate that they advance the public good. So after analyzing the 990s and its history, I was convinced that something wasn't right because things just didn't add up. And so my research began. And this was the 990s, and as you may or may not know, Dr. Kempin has done a phenomenal job over the years explaining all of the 990s, and I'm not going to rehash any of that. I'm sure you can check out all that information on the AAPS YouTube channel. But, first of all, ABIM is a 501c3, and it can receive tax-deductible donations. So you got to wonder a little bit about that. And their mission statement is to enhance the quality of healthcare by certifying internists and subspecialists who demonstrate the knowledge, skills, and attitudes essential for excellent patient care. It can be pretty vague and subjective if you just think about that mission statement. The next thing is certification that I found out. It was once lifetime. What changed? You would think that practicing physicians got together and decided that this was a need from within, and so you would expect surveys or a large study, something must have been documented in order to, promote such a change. The next thing that I found was the, exam failure rates. The exam failure rates were continually increasing, and then the lack of transparency on the exam was also an issue. You couldn't find out what you did wrong. Like, you take this exam, you study for it, you can't get a hold of tests to study from, and of course there were all these other concerns. The cost of the exam, the excessive amounts of money to law firms, the deferred revenue, et cetera, et cetera. And then the other thing that I found interesting was that while there was literature supporting mock in various medical journals like JAMA and New England Journal of Medicine, the names of the authors were familiar because I had seen them on the 990s. So it brought to mind, if this is a public benefit, if this is supposed to bring about positive patient outcomes, am I using the correct buzzwords? Saving lives, shouldn't the material be free and easily available for physicians? Shouldn't this be a shared effort? Shouldn't they be giving it to you? So why is it proprietary and trademarked? And how are board members writing research articles supporting a product that they sell? How is that not biased? And how is that even considered research when there is no peer review process? And the literature against mock was one thing that I had a difficult time finding, and it seemed very scant. So I came upon Change Board recertification and sent an email in hopes to find some literature that didn't have some bias or gave another opinion, at the very least, and was fortunate to make first contact, is what I call it. I was happy to receive all these responses. That was, if you can see from the slide, that was the first email thread, and it was all that same day. And I was, talking to Dr. Ben Bassat, Dr. Cavalli, Dr. Kempin, there were so many. I mean, and Dr. Eck, I think, is on that one. So if I forget, I'm sorry. There's so many. But that's how this began. And over the course of many emails and conversations with Ron, Paul, and many others, I decided to start a monthly newsletter detailing the issues and concerns many physicians had in hopes to inform physicians of the issues and motivate them to take an active role in changing the medical certification industry and creating a state-to-state awareness. And this happened with the help of the physicians that I was speaking to, Docs for Patient Care, and AAPS. And the newsletter started off with initially about 70 physicians, and now it's growing over 3,000 and getting new subscriptions regularly. I also decided last year that I was going to do a survey. I wanted to see what people really thought about ABIM and their nonprofit status. And it's a very informal survey on SurveyMonkey, and it's just two questions, one open-ended question. And the first question was, does ABIM fulfill the requirement of a public charity? Out of 220 responses, 97.3% said no. Does ABIM deserve the 501c3 status that allows them to be exempt from federal income taxes? No, out of 210 responses. And the open-ended question, do you have any other comments, questions, or concerns? Out of the 223 that answered, 171 had very negative comments against ABIM, and the remaining 52 were either no or not applicable. And if I put some of those comments up here, they would not be nice. So I just chose not to. So as an analyst in my work, and I like looking at the policy implications of things, and the first thing that obviously has been a huge issue for most practicing physicians is the fiduciary responsibility of duty of care and duty of loyalty that really has been called into question by physicians. The next is the petition. Dr. Tierstein, in an effort to get ABIM to work together with him and others for a solution, put this petition out, got like 10,000 signatures, and not even a peep from ABIM. And that says a lot, because these are nonprofit organizations. They are actually accountable to the public. And when there is no communication or they're just completely ignored, you have to wonder how the communication has been before, which, that's an excellent example of how they just don't talk. And when they finally did talk And when they finally did communicate, it was only after NBPAS was officially formed. There were no emails or anything prior, no interest in finding a solution. What do you think? Let's work together, none of that. And finally, the question remains, does mock reform really even exist? You know, there's a significant amount of doubt as to whether the exam itself is voluntary. While they claim it's voluntary, there's a significant concern because of the many physicians who have complained about hospital certifications, insurance panels, and this was most recently sent to me. Now, I don't know if you can see it, but it is a letter that was just given to me a couple of days ago, and it's from the Blue Cross Blue Shield, Texas. And if it's putting all these requirements for 2016, and the very bottom, it says that they are requiring ABMS mock recertification. And so it's very important to understand that coercion is present only when the society member has no choice at all, but also when the society exercises some degree of undue influences. So are patients and physicians winning? Now, physicians have lost trust without knowing what ABIM and ABMS actually does when it scores exams. How can physicians assess when it's acting in good faith to help physicians? The financial cost and issues only create more distrust of this organization, and based on the failure rates, ABIM is seen as biasing results to favor its own commercial interests. It seems that this has emboldened ABMS/ABIM to experiment with more intrusive and even possibly exploitive practices, such as ABIM's latest position, which is replacing its 10-year maintenance of certification exam with shorter, more frequent testing that physicians just can take home or take it to your office. Isn't that exactly what you need? Take-home exams more frequently. Now for the patients. The patients, it's really a Faustian bargain. Just keep us safe and we won't ask you the details. But it's really providing a false sense of security to patients, and that is actually very damaging in the long run. Of course, the cost, as you saw from the article that Dr. Kempen put out, $5.7 billion out of healthcare, and that's over 10 years, and $561 million in testing costs. Now, mock reform is probably not the best phrase for me to use. It implies somehow there's a benefit to MOC and recertification. And mock, in my opinion, and again, not being a physician, looking at it from the outside, it just seems like it's a beta test. They're just testing you and to see what works, a trial and error methodology that in the end could harm physicians' careers and prevents patients from receiving care. And although this may be an unintended consequence, the lack of proof about MOC benefits come at a high cost of billions. And so it's evident that the system is broken. And when practicing physicians speak out via surveys, petitions, blogs, make thousands of comments against recertification, this should indicate that there is no value. Conversely, it should be noted that physicians, do find many things useful, such as UpToDate. It's a premier evidence-based clinical decision support resource. More than 1 million clinicians in 174 countries and about 90% of academic medical centers rely upon that. CME. There are 1,900 accredited CME providers offered more than 147,000 educational activities across the country. Therefore, ABIM and ABMS's proprietary material may really only be useful for some type of voluntary CME. So finally, I'll leave you with the following quotes, and these are from law journals. When a large respected group gains a position of dominance from which its voice is virtually the only one heard, its statement, if incorrect, have a great potential for harm. And the final one, therefore, a professional society should not be permitted to issue evaluations describing practices as appropriate or inappropriate without ensuring that its statements leave the ultimate choice with its consumers. For example, if there is a possibility that consumers may be misled by its subjective evaluations, a society should confine its statements to be objective and verifiable facts. The Supreme Court's opinions are consistent with this view. Its opinions in both the antitrust and commercial speech areas have demanded objectivity from professionals and standard-setting organizations, which is what these organizations need to be doing but aren't. So I think the overwhelming question, or overwhelming answer to this question, is no. If you haven't joined the No Mock group on LinkedIn, please do. There's Twitter at No Mock Now, and if you want to subscribe to the newsletter, you can by emailing info@antimock@runbox.com, and there's my personal information if you want to contact me. So do we have time for questions?
Yes. Why is this not an antitrust suit? And I'm surprised somebody hasn't brought it, because, you know, when 2020 comes around, on December 31st, I'm a board-certified orthopedic surgeon. On January 1st, I won't be. And I won't be able to be on, you know, Blue Cross will knock me off the panel, I'll get fired from the hospital. I mean, only because I didn't pay this extortion fee. And since it seems like that should be a clear antitrust violation.
I agree with you. However, I do not have the legal expertise to answer that question. If Mr. Shafley is around, I'm sure he would be able to better answer that, but I agree with you.
I just have a little comment. I find it very interesting that the attorneys have no continuing legal education requirements to maintain their license, and they have no relicensure examinations for maintenance of licensure.
Right. I think they have continuing law, but they don't have they don't have to rebar. Yes.
Well, the legislators and the governors and the president, they don't take any continuing freedom education. They come right out and they say, we pass all kinds of unconstitutional stuff up here. That's an almost direct quote, at least from the guy from South Carolina, Clyburn. So where's the National Politician Data Bank? Where's that? Where's continuing freedom education? Where's the age requirement for the mummies in Congress to, kick off? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Sure, thank you.
Thank you, Tamsin, and thank you, Suja, Amir, for your excellent presentation.